TSIA2 exam tips. What does it mean to be college level ready? In order for a student to take a college level course, a student must meet specific test scores in English language arts and reading and in mathematics. If a student is wanting to take a dual credit course while they are in high school, we are able to use the student's English 2 EOC score and the student's Algebra 1 EOC score and the student's Algebra 2 grade. Or we are able to use the student's PSAT scores from the 10th or 11th grade. If the student successfully completes English 1301 as a dual credit course, then the student is considered TSIA2 complete for English language arts. If the student successfully completes Math 1314, which is college algebra, then the student is TSIA2 complete for mathematics. If a student does not take dual credit English or math in high school, then we are able to use a student's SAT or ACT scores to consider them college level ready to be eligible to take college credit courses when the student goes to college. The SAT cut score needed to be considered TSIA2 exempt on the SAT is going to be a 480 on the evidence-based reading and writing section or a 530 on the math. The student does not need to meet both sets of scores to be college level ready. The student can be considered TSIA2 exempt in just English language arts, or the student can be considered just TSIA2 complete in math. The ACT cut scores is a 23 composite score with at least a 19 on the English section for English language arts, or a 19 on the math section for mathematics. The student must have the 23 composite score with at least a 19 on the English or at least a 19 on the math. If a student meets TSIA2 exempt criteria on one section of the ACT and on the other section of the ACT, then we can use varying sets of scores. If a student does not meet TSIA2 exempt scores on the SAT or ACT, then the student would be required to take the TSIA2 exam and meet certain scores to be eligible to take college level courses. This is a state law. The TSIA2 exam has two sections. The two sections on the TSIA2 exam are English language arts with an essay and mathematics. Before a student is able to take the TSIA2 exam, the student must complete a required pre-assessment activity. This is a state law that must be completed. In order to complete the TSIA2 pre-assessment activity, the student can Google TSIApreview.com. TSIpreview.com. The PAA, or pre-assessment activity, takes about 30 minutes to complete, and it must be completed in one sitting. The student does not need to show proof of completion to the high school. The high school is able to view a report of all students who have completed the TSIA2 pre-assessment activity. It is important for the student to practice and prepare for the TSIA2 exam before they take the exam for the first time. When can I take the TSIA2? The TSIA2 is offered 4 times during the school year in Lamar C ISD. There will be one more testing window this fall semester. There will be 2 testing windows in the spring. Students who need the TSIA2 will automatically be signed up for the sections that they need by their campus testing coordinator. TSIA2 test taking tips. Remember, the TSIA2 is an untimed exam. Students should take their time and read for understanding. Again, there are 2 sections to the TSIA2 exam, an English language arts section with a required essay and a math section. The student has 2 opportunities on each section of the test to meet college level readiness. There is a multiple choice section, and then there is a diagnostic section. If the student meets college level readiness on the initial multiple choice section, then the student will not go into the diagnostic section. If the student does not meet TSIA2 readiness scores on the first section, however, the student does well enough on the diagnostic section, then the student will meet college level readiness. TSIA2 test taking tips, the English language arts section. There are 30 questions on the initial first part of the test. If a student rocks those first 30 questions, then that is the only multiple choice section the student will get. The student will then go straight into the essay section. If the student does not do well enough on the first 30 questions, the first 30 multiple choice questions, then the student will go into a diagnostic section. There are 48 questions on the diagnostic section. If the student does well enough on the diagnostic section, then the student will meet college level standards. So it's very important that students read every question for understanding and to try their very best on all questions. If you just get the first 30, then that means that you met college level standards on the first set of 30 questions. If you go into the second set of 48 questions, continue to read for understanding. Focus on the content in the question and what the question is asking for so that you can meet college level standards. On the essay, you can write 300 to 600 words on the essay. You must get an essay score of a 5 to be considered college level ready. It is a computer scored essay. It's very, very, very important to write at least 450 words on the essay. If the student does not write at least 450 words, the student will not receive a score of 5 on the essay. It's very important, again, to write at least 450 words. A student can write the best 350-word essay that they have ever written in their entire life. If it's not 450 words, the student will not get a 5. So it's important to write a well thought out essay, but it also has to be long enough. So make sure you're writing enough words as well. Math tips. There are 20 questions on the initial part of the exam. Again, the math test is also a multiple choice exam. If the student does well enough on those first 20 questions, then that is the only questions that the student is going to have. If the student does not do well enough on those first 20 questions, then the student will go into the diagnostic section. The diagnostic section has 48 questions. If the student does well enough on those 48 questions, then the student will be considered college level ready. So when you go into the diagnostic section, don't give up. Focus on the questions. Think it through. Students are not allowed to bring calculators into the testing room. A calculator is built into the exam. If the question thinks that you should be using a calculator on the test, then there will be a calculator icon on that question. Use the calculator. Please do not try to complete the TSIA2 math section without using a calculator. It is imperative that you use the calculator and that you use the scratch paper you are provided to work through the math problems on the TSIA2 exam.
State law requires that any student planning to take the TSIA2 exam must complete the TSIA2 pre-assessment activity. In Lamar C. ISD, we use a program called Querium to complete the TSIA2 pre-assessment activity. To complete the required TSIA2 pre-assessment activity, Google TSIPreview.com. TSIPreview.com. You will then click the Get Started button. The TSIA2 pre-assessment activity takes about 30 minutes and must be completed in one sitting. So it is best if you make sure that you have the time needed before you start the pre-assessment activity. Click on Select Campus and find your high school campus name. Click Next. You will enter your first name, your last name, and your personal email address. Do not enter your LCISD email address. Only enter your personal email address. Then you will enter your birth date. And then you will enter your LCISD student ID number. Check the I accept box and then go to step 2. It is extremely important that while you are completing the pre-assessment activity that you read for understanding all of the content and watch all of the videos thoroughly. At the end of the pre-assessment activity, you will have sample TSIA2 questions that you must answer. Do your best on these pre-assessment activity questions because it will give you a good idea of how the questions are going to be written when you take the TSIA2. So on step 2, review all of the information. Then you can go to step 3. Step 3 is a video. So you'll watch the video. Then you will go to step 4, so on and so forth. Once you have completed all required steps on the pre-assessment activity, you will receive an email certifying your completion of the pre-assessment activity. You do not need to forward the pre-assessment activity to anyone at your campus. We are able to view students' information who have completed the pre-assessment activity through a reporting service. To study for the TSIA2, log in to your ClassLinks account. In ClassLinks, find Library Resources. You will find EBSCO Learning Express. EBSCO Learning Express. Click on the icon and you will be taken to the Texas Quest website. Here you will see STAR and TSI preparation. Click on the photo. You will then click on TSIA placement test preparation. Then again, you will click on TSIA placement test preparation. And here you will be able to select which test sections you want to practice for. If you have already created an account before, click on sign in. And if you need to register, then you'll click on register. You want to make sure that you register for an account. That way it saves your process as you go along to really help you prepare for the exam. Remember, you will have the opportunity to retest if you don't meet college level requirements the first time. However, we don't want you to have to retest. So please take some time and prepare for the exam.